A good evening. The story of Uganda's wing bird in the air was smooth sailing until last week when a turbulence of allegations bubbled up before the COSASE hearing. The airline that handles the pride of flying nearly 12,000 flights connecting over 500,000 passengers to their destinations in more than 11 routes met the harsh reality of its business losses, poor administration and the questionable rise of its leadership to positions of merit. For days, the public was treated to the spectacle of problems at the heart of managing the airline and the drama of its unfolding. Tonight, on the spot, we host the man at the heart of the questioning line, Joel Ssenyonyi, who is the COSASE Chairman and a renowned flight captain and manager, Captain Francis Babu. This is NTV on the spot. Thank you so much for joining us for NTV on the spot. I'm filling in some really large shoes left behind by Patrick Kamara. I hope I fill them in well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us this evening. And I guess I'll start with the man of the moment, Joel. In very few words, what is it that COSASE is looking for from the Uganda Airlines management?
Thank you, Raymond. Good evening to you, to Senior here. And the viewers out there, you'll do all right. You're worried about Patrick Kamara's shoes.
They are large shoes.
So it's a pleasure being here. I feel like home, you know, being the OB that I am of this place. Anyhow, what is COSASE looking for? So as a committee, we have 121 entities that we play an oversight role over. And what that means is we get the Auditor General's report, look at the issues raised therein, and then we dig deeper to establish. But our mandate is wider than just the Auditor General's report. When you read our rules of procedure, Rule 159 thereof, we interest ourselves in the operations of this entity, in the general well-being and health of this entity. All right, so including things like how are the staff thereof, are they comfortable? What are the issues, you know? Recruitment, are there qualified, competent staff in these entities? Everything to do with the entity, really, to see to it that it is operating efficaciously, and if there are issues, we point them out with the view of improvement. So that's our general mandate. Now, as far as Uganda Airlines is concerned, Uganda Airlines is one of those entities that got a qualified opinion of the Auditor General's report. Now, for those that know accounts, a qualified opinion is a terrible opinion. It's a bad opinion. Yes. You know, things are not adding up, your books are not in order, misappropriation, etc., etc. And so we decided to first go for those entities that have, you know, if it was a teacher marking, that have see me, or do corrections, or you're not promoted to the next class. And so we began to dig in, because the Auditor General's report is raising questions of, you know, competence of staff, money not being properly put to good use, not properly accounted for. And so we begin to dig. When the Auditor General says this amount was not properly accounted for, because they could not account at that point, then for us to dig deeper to establish where did that money go, you know, what is it said to have done, and so on. So we are looking at literally everything, the entire health of the entity.
We've seen you get head-to-head with the airline's management. I want to start from their loss-making before we get into the other details. We've seen you get head-to-head with their management around the losses they're making, which are about 500 million or thereabouts. And the management has been speaking back saying all other airlines across Africa are making losses. It's not just unique to Uganda. Is there anything that's unique within the losses that you've looked at as a committee that you say, this is a very specific loss that's specific to Uganda that could have been done better?
So, Raymond, businesses make losses, yeah, for different reasons. Could have been COVID-19 the past few years. It could be anything, yeah. Losses do happen. Now, the airlines industry, sometimes the losses are even a little bit more. Captain here will let you know, the dynamics are a little different. It's not true that every airline makes a loss, you know. Read up on Ethiopian Airlines. They've got their issues too, but perhaps experience over time, and there's a couple of things they are doing right that are enabling them to keep their head above the water. But that said, losses can get to happen. But then when losses happen, it's important to establish what is occasioning these losses. You know, a loss could just be because the environment, the terrain generally was problematic business-wise and so on. The losses could be because of inflated procurement deals, you know, over-invoicing, and so on and so forth. So those then become problematic. So when you look at a loss of this year, you know, the loss is 232 billion. You're thinking, okay, so the loss is huge. What is there that is more than meets the eye? And so as we begin to dig deep, we realize procurement regulations were not followed in giving, you know, companies business. You know, people are hiring businesses that they have partnership, you know, that they are partners thereof. Over invoicing, you know, that you're meant to pay this company that you have subcontracted to do some work, you're meant to pay them, let's say, 1 billion shillings. But then you invoice saying 3 billion shillings. So you're actually stealing from the company. So that's a loss, not occasioned because of COVID or whatever, but because of theft that's happening therein, you know. Again, Captain will tell you about things like void ticketing. Again, that is stealing from the airline. Yeah, so all these are issues that we sought to understand. Of course, the other gets to be competence, because if you're making a loss and then we try and understand, okay, so why is the loss happening? There's misappropriation of money, there's billions of shillings. When you read the Auditor General's report, billions of shillings, doubtful payment, you know, and then other monies that cannot be accounted for. And Raymond, if you cannot account for money, it means either you stole it or it didn't do what you're saying it did. Otherwise, why would you not account for it? If we give you 3 billion shillings for operations of NTV here, but you can only account for 1 billion shillings, it means you stole the 2 billion or that kind of thing. So all these are issues, you know, that we seek to understand. But also, as part of our mandate, and again raised by the Auditor General, raised issues about the competencies and qualifications. Didn't give much detail, but now that's our duty to dig deep. And so then I asked the CEO to give me their HR manual. And I asked them for all their CVs, which they brought. So now I said, okay, let's compare now. What is in the HR manual? And what is in the CV? They have a commercial director whose highest qualification is Senior 6. He's a commercial director. Now, I've had people say, but even members of parliament, the highest qualification is Senior 6. Well, that's the law. Raymond, I have 2 degrees, I'm doing a 3rd degree. But when I was going to be nominated as an MP, I didn't take these degree documents. They were not relevant. What they required was Senior 6. That's what I took, because that is the law. So until the law changes, for you to become an MP, what you require is Senior 6. Now, to become CEO of Uganda Airlines and all these other positions, there's an HR manual which stipulates what the requirement is. And that was set by the airline. You know, I've had people saying, Ssenyonyi, you're witch hunting, Bamturaki, and so on. But I'm saying I used the very documents she gave me. The documents formulated by the airline. That's the standard they set. When you set a standard, follow it. Okay? But then also, we looked into how she specifically was recruited. The board did hire PricewaterhouseCoopers, paid 98.1 million shillings, recruit for us a CEO. So they begin the process, put out adverts in the newspapers and so on. People begin to apply. The board told us 40 people applied. 2 days to the expiry of the deadline for the application. By that time, 40 people had applied. So 2 days to that expiry, they get a letter from the Minister, General Katumba Amala, whom we had in the committee today, saying there are instructions for you to appoint substantively Jennifer Bamturaki as CEO. And so the board did that. I asked them, did you do the right thing? And they said, now, Honorable Chairperson, what did you want us to do? We had instructions. We had to terminate the whole process of recruiting a CEO, which was problematic. Because you see, if somebody is good and you're saying this person is the best there is, subject them to interviews, subject them to the process which you have said. Now you've terminated the process, you have hired somebody against what the process should be like. Because you see, a private company is not like a public one. Okay? If it's a private business, you can hire whoever you want, including your children or whatever. It's your private business. But a public entity, it's different. Okay? So you have had somebody, after terminating the process, they're not going through the rightful process, and then she does not have the requirements according to the standards set. Because when she gave us her CV, her highest qualification is a bachelor's degree. Okay. Of course, then there was a lot of debate about whether this transcript exists or whatever, because you know her questions were not, her responses were not forthcoming. But I said, okay, let's take it that you actually have this bachelor's degree, you studied it, and the documents are somewhere. Hopefully, you'll get them. Of course, I saw the VC of Makerere.
We will play for
saying this lady should apologize. Why is she telling lies?
She picked her documents. I think yesterday the vice chancellor spoke to.
I don't know. I've not seen them. We asked her to write back to us.
Okay,
this document.
let's just play the video from the vice chancellor. I know that my director says he has it. If you can play us that video that shows that the vice chancellor what he said.
The CEO herself picked her transcript yesterday. So if they had disappeared, how would she just come and within a day she has got hers? I think that was a careless statement that depicts Makerere as a careless institution, and she should actually apologize to Makerere University.
The vice chancellor confirming she picked her transcript. Of course, he has his bonds to pick about how his university was portrayed.
Let's wait. Actually, for me, my issue was not even so much about whether the transcript for the degree exists. Maybe it does, you know. Now that the VC says she picked it, we are waiting for her to tender it in. To us as a committee, it hasn't happened. But for me, that wasn't my bigger challenge. The bigger challenge was she was not weighing, tallying against the set procedure by her own entity. Okay? Now that's a problem because the standards have been set. So I've had people saying, you know, qualifications don't matter, it is just a skill. Well, if it is just the qualifications, then remove them. Because it is not COSASE that set these standards. It is Uganda Airlines by the board. Yeah. So if they think that the qualifications don't matter, all these degrees and so on, I told you the commercial director has senior 6 and so on, if they don't matter, then remove them. But once you have them in place, follow them, you know. Yeah. Raymond, there are people who speak better English than myself, or even better English than Captain here. He speaks very good English. And I used to see him, you know, a long time ago as a very good debater. Yeah. There are people who probably speak better English than him and debate better than him, but if they don't have the senior 6 requirement, you cannot become an MP. That is the standard. Yes. Okay. But finally, as I wrap up, the other issues that then we got to discover, so somebody has been hired, not following the procedure that has been set, and it is a clear one. We say, okay, so how is she running the affairs of this place? You know, there's a company which she gave a contract, a company called Abavata. She was commercial director at the time, and she was the contract manager, you know. This is a company that she had the hand in. Of course, I first asked her, do you know about it, and so on. She first denied, like they usually do, until I bring out my, you know, my data and say, okay, so you're saying you don't know this company, but here you signed on behalf of the company a contract for some other work elsewhere. Is this your name? Yes. Is that your signature? Yes. So how do you sign on behalf of a company which you say you don't know? Okay, but now, fast forward, you have given this company work to do without following procurement because they did not do competitive bidding as should be. So this company is taken on. What happens thereafter? Over invoicing. Company is meant to be paid $172,000 US, and she herself over invoices, puts in an invoice of $404,000 US. You're stealing from the entity. All these are issues that eventually get us to think, wait a minute, do we have the right people in this place? Of course, I can't give the entire picture. Eventually, our report will bring all these issues out and we'll make our recommendations. But that's what we have discovered so far. Yeah. And as we were telling General Katumba Amala today, I've had people, even, you know, leaders in this country saying, Joel Ssenyonyi and his committee, they are witch hunting, this lady, and so on and so forth. They are economic saboteurs. But between me, who is exposing this road so that you can take action about it, and somebody who is stealing from the airline, who is the economic saboteur?
Sadly, we don't have Jennifer here or anyone from the Uganda Airlines to respond to these allegations, some of them which are on the floor of Parliament, and that's because...
Well, if you guys have been following the committee, yes, they were responding themselves.
Yes, we asked them actually to make it to this show, and they declined that invitation. But I want to bring in Captain Francis Babu. We had this conversation when the airline was being launched, and this conversation was around the things that you need to do to avoid the airline getting back to where it was before. And those were procedural matters around hiring. There were matters around how the airline is run, when it arrives, when it leaves. It looks like the airline is doing well on timing, because it's been credited across the spectrum for arriving and leaving on time. But what Joel Ssenyonyi's committee has just shown us is that the inner runnings of the airline just need a specific touch to deal with them.
First and foremost, thank you very much. If you allow me, I would like to pay my condolences to General Tumwine, his family, and all his relatives and friends. I knew General Tumwine for some time. I liked him as a person, very religious. I've had some people make comments. It is good, and we wish his family to go through this period peacefully, and we pray for them, and may his soul rest in peace. I just want to say that because I have a lot of respect for the man. First of all, let's separate Parliament in their job, because people are vilifying Parliament, they're demonizing Parliament, and they're the ones who set the rules. If you didn't want them to supervise or to find out what is going on in the country, then tell them not to. But once you've given powers to Parliament, to the oversight role of companies that belong to government, then allow them to do the job. So let us stop this demonizing. Even if I don't like he's doing his job.
Is that for a fact?
No, even if I didn't.
Even
an example.
What I'm saying,
yes.
The man is doing his job.
Yes.
Now let us go to the airline business. I am one of those who say, right from the beginning, this country strategically and knowing very well this is a strategic industry for this country. One, because we are landlocked. Two, we need the airline for security purposes, and therefore it's important we have it as an economic venture.
Yes.
Now that said and done, we've said this many times that what is it? The problem with airlines in this part of the world is management. Is management doing well? And when the airline started, some of us said, listen, this is an airline startup. This is not an airline. We're just starting an airline. Forget about the old one. That one went. People keep the old airline. We didn't learn anything, because if you did, you'd not be having these problems. So let's say when in this airline startup, what are the problems when you're starting up an airline? One thing all of you are talking about, and I heard yesterday I was on another program, they're flying very well, they are doing good. Yeah, those are pilots. They're very highly trained. They are trained under ICAO standard. Yep. They are trained by these airlines that brought out the airplane. The insurance has certified them that they are very good pilots. The cabin crew are very well trained, and the engineers are good. So now we separate operations from management. Are you with me now?
Yes, I am.
Now, the management of Uganda Airlines is extremely important. And when the airline was starting, they invited me to talk to the task force. Now, the task force, when they invited me, I told them, please, during the startup, don't bring boards. Don't let them hire. Let us get a group of experts, even if it means hiring them from abroad. And this happened, and I will give you the case in point, how it happened. This group will now set it up and tell us how to employ people at different levels, how to set up a board and things like that. The reason I did that, your Ethiopian Airlines, everybody talks about Ethiopian, was started by TWA, Trans World Airline, an American airline.
Yeah.
Singapore Airline was started by the British Airways and some people from France. The East African Airways, which we used to have, was started by BOC, British overseas. So they trained the initial skeleton of making that airline start. Now that's a very important point. So during this startup, it's very important that you don't make mistakes on management. We should not be personal. And I'm sorry, Ugandans have got this problem. It's called credentialism. People think you have a degree, you have that degree, you have PhD. No, in these particular areas of flying and some technical parts of even computers now, the qualifications go with hands-on, and people are trained differently. So, what we should have done when we're starting this, bring this group of people, then bring your own people from here, and let them train them to the level that you want them to be. Apart from the university degrees and whatnot, 1 degree is enough. You don't need more than that. But what you need to do is to train that person, starting from the bottom and bringing them up to the level you want them to be at. And you don't train one, you train several. And you choose one of them to be.
But Captain, if I could just push back on that.
Yes.
The airline started with a competent CEO, Conwell Mulea, who'd done airlines across Africa. And Jennifer Mamturaki, who is the CEO, and I hope that Joel can confirm this, told the committee that she actually was sent in there as a shadow CEO when Conwell was doing the job, to basically learn how to do the job. It looks like when Conwell left, the job wasn't learned how to be done.
I was going,
from what we're hearing.
I was going to come to that one.
Yeah.
I was going to come to that one, but I was giving you the picture of what you should have in an airline startup. Now, I'm going to also go on the way they purchased those aeroplanes. An airline startup, you don't buy aeroplanes cash.
Please.
You're throwing away your money because you are tying the money into an asset. You start by leasing. That's another one point. Another point that I have is once you have those aeroplanes, you start your routes and you start them slowly. You don't bring aeroplanes at a go. For example, if you are going to start with regional airlines, flying between Nairobi, Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, Mogadishu, you start with a few aeroplanes, and usually it is odd numbers, 1, 3, 5. Now, in the case of ours, which is a small country, you start with 3 aeroplanes, the small ones, start with your regional game, and then go to the bigger level of going international, which is no problem at all. So all these have to be put together. Now, what really happened is that they mixed the task force. They mixed it and they brought in our culture of Ugandans who, when they go into an institution, they fight. If you look at all our agencies in this country, there are wars between leadership of those institutions. And it is fought on political level, it's fought using very dirty things, and then they spoil what is going on. What you are now asking me about the first management and the first board was a war between some people and the ones who were there. And they said all sorts of things. I received the information that the first board is very, the chairman of the first board is a very unhappy man, and he says he's respecting people, but if he opened up, a lot of people would go into hiding. So the task force which was set up was wrong. They should have got a better task force which had no attachment. Those two you just quoted a few minutes ago worked in Air Uganda. They came from Air Uganda, which was a private airline, and then they continued here. So they knew each other very well. What I was talking about, I would have done what Emirates did. They went out into Europe. They got people who had been in airlines, and they set up 10 people who came and started Emirates. And today Emirates is one of the best airlines in the world. Same thing with Ethiopian Airlines, same thing with Singapore Airlines. So we should have started up that way. Now, I am not against anybody having 1 degree or even having advanced level, depending how he was trained. In the United States, when you leave university and enter into a corporation, you started from the bottom and then you climb. And it takes you a few years before you get to a certain level. I'm sure the COSASE would not have been disappointed if somebody had been an airline, he had started from the bottom, had become an officer here, an officer there, became a director, became a manager, and eventually became the CEO. Nobody would have been annoyed about that. So I now go directly to the parliament. What the parliament is doing, it's in the constitution. The parliament has been given an oversight, powers to make sure that the government investments are followed. And what they have done, and Auditor General has given them a paper, they are going to follow it. The only thing probably I'll ask my brother here is whether they have looked at the amount of money which was spent buying the aeroplanes, and then the money they lost during COVID, because when the aeroplanes were on the ground, of course, they had expenses. And those ones, government should have, like in Europe and in America, they intervened and paid for whatever they lost during COVID. Now, and then the money which they used to buy those aeroplanes should have been put on capital, the capital of the airline, so that the airline was not being inconvenienced to pay the loan. So those are the kind of things that probably I would have asked.
But Captain, the thing that I want to ask you, and something that the airline management wants to hang Joel over, is that continuously exposing the airline management to the committee and asking them for accountability. The airline management says that doing that is exposing the airline to loss of customers, to loss of trust and confidence. Is that something you believe in? Do you think it's a genuine concern?
Airline or service industries, starting with the airline, the bank, the insurance and all that, whenever there are such things, they do affect the reputation of the airline. That's correct. However, not the losses. I think what people are talking about here is the qualification of the people who are there. They think that it is giving a bad impression outside. I don't think they are talking about the losses. Now, frankly speaking, I don't want to go into personalities, but I am sorry. The levels of the chief executive officer of that airline should be slightly different. Apart from the degree which everybody is talking about, there should be the experience that is recognized. Undergone different levels of training. And I'll give you an example. I was a director on the Civil Aviation Authority, the first one which was set up. And when we were looking for experts, we interviewed a lot of people. We had all sorts of degrees which were brought there. But we landed with one man who had one degree, BCom, and he had 20 years experience at different levels. Accounting, financial management, board of directors, and all this experience brought him to a level of being a managing director. So when we got him, the first thing we said, this man must be trained. So we went to ICAO, and they gave us experts who sat with him in that office for 2 years. And he became one of the best civil aviation chief executive officers. So what you need here is somebody who can train the chief executive officer of an airline to be at that level. And I'll tell you what, people have been saying, oh, you are going to be economically, people will not. Aviation has intelligence. If you've got a bad CEO, the whole world will know that the CEO of this airline is useless. They will know about your people. They will know about your level of maintenance. They will know about your pilots. Aviation intelligence is the hottest among those intelligences in the world. So I wanted people to be very careful. You cannot hide this thing. Even if COSASE stops, the whole world already knows. What is asking is already known. They even know who's taking bribes. So all I am trying to say, let us stop this. Let's find a solution. And let us stop being arrogant. I saw arrogancy on television of people from Uganda Airlines talking down onto Parliament and talking down to us Ugandans. This airline is all of us. We would like them to do better. Let's find a solution to what has happened, and let's do what they call a damage control and get this airline moving. Now, the worst bit that has happened, and this is very, very unfortunate, if the board is appointed by a power there to be, and the same power appoints the chief executive officer, you create conflict. And that conflict will never allow those two to work together. It will be fighting throughout. So what you have virtually created is a group of people called the board fighting with an individual, which I think is unfortunate. What we need to do is to bring them together instead of fighting, and we find a way to move forward.
Joel, if I could come back to you, from what you've discovered from the Uganda Airlines, where do you go next? I know that you asked that the CEO comes back to the committee. She didn't come back. You sent police after her. The police told you that they couldn't bring her to the parliamentary committee. Where do you go from here with the probe?
We are still digging up. Today we interacted with General Katumba Amala, who is Works Minister. That's the supervising ministry of Uganda Airlines, but also it is one of the shareholders. Uganda Airlines has 2 shareholders: Ministry of Finance 50%, Works 50%. You know, and one of the things we were putting to him was who plays what role, what's the mandate of each. And Captain has raised something important. If you put in place a board, and that board is supposed to hire top management from CEO and the other top managers, but now somebody else is appointing that CEO, do you think this CEO is going to accord this board any respect, any subservience as it should be? Of course not, because she's thinking, you guys didn't hire me. I was hired elsewhere. I don't report to you. And yet the CEO is supposed to report to the board. But now you have usurped the powers of the board, because the board has started out on a process to recruit. And then you terminate that and say, hey, that doesn't matter, put it on the side, appoint this one. And, you know, we had the board on the committee, and you guys played the videos too. They said, Honorable Chair, what if you were in our shoes, what would you do?
In fact,
so they seem handicapped.
I want to ask my director to play for me a video of the General Katumba Amala, who was before your parliamentary committee today, who too said that he couldn't veto the decision that had come from the head of state. It was thrown down the gauntlet, and there was nothing that could be done. He's a principal shareholder, true, but the head of state had issued a directive, and that directive needed to be followed.
Yeah, but before we go there, who advised the head of state? The advisors of the head of, because the head of state has got advisors, and the minister is one of them. The question is, why do we put the head of state forward? Maybe the advisors did not give the head of state the right thing.
Captain, let's first listen to what the minister told COSASE today, if we can have that bite.
Yeah.
What authority would I challenge his appointment of a mere CEO of an enterprise when he's exercising his powers?
There you go. That's the minister, who is a shareholder in the airline, supervising line minister, saying, look here, the appointing authority, who appoints him to, is appointing people in the airline and making.
No, there's a problem with that, Raymond, because I asked General Katumba Amala, who appointed him minister. He said the president. I said, so when you were appointed minister, you had to go through a process. Your name had to be brought to Parliament, you were put on a weighing scale, and you were found worthy. That's how you became a minister. There are some names that are sent to Parliament and they don't make the cut. I don't want to mention names here. They are thrown out either because of qualifications or whatever the case might be. And so we said, why do you think it is not your responsibility to guide your appointing authority to say, okay, so this is what we want to do, but can we follow the process so that things are done smartly? Because ultimately, I'm not going to look for his appointing authority. No, I'm holding him responsible, because he kept saying, you know what, you guys should go and meet the president, and he explains to you. I said, boss, you're not going to run away from responsibility. Why? Because you are the authorized officer. You are the supervising minister. You are the shareholder. I don't see the name Yoweri Kaguta Museveni anywhere there. Okay? He's your appointing authority, yes. You can have engagements with him, he can advise or whatever, or even direct. But at the end of the day, it is your decision. You see, people keep using that word, you know, directive, presidential directive. They misconstrue it. And sometimes they even tell lies. We have just finished the report on Uganda Land Commission. The Honorable Betty Olive Namisango Kamyaturomwe lied to COSASE. She said she vouched for some people to be paid money, over 10 billion shillings. And she said some of those were presidential directive. Of course, it turned out that some of those who were paid were ghosts. People had forged court documents and so on, and she had aided this whole process. We asked her to bring that presidential directive. Until today, it doesn't exist. We had Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, to whom she wrote, quoting a presidential directive which she didn't attach. We asked him, said, sir, so you received this letter? Your fellow minister is telling about a presidential directive. Did you see it? And Honorable Kasaija is too quick to apologize. He said, Honorable Chair, I'm sorry, I did not see it. You know, I just trusted my fellow minister. But with hindsight, I should have asked for that directive first. So sometimes people tell lies because the directive is not there. How one fellow minister denied her, okay? Other times, they misconstrue. Because if you get a directive, there is no directive that tells you flout the law. You are duty bound to tell whoever, you know, it could be anybody else, by the way, you know. We are public figures, but we have families, you know. We have wives, and you have recently joined that club. I'm sure when you go back home, your wife might advise you on one or two things on how to run this show, okay? Now, if you feel, I really must please my wife to accommodate her thoughts, you do that through the procedure. So you don't come here and flout the rules set by NTV just because your wife or your parent or whoever you hold in high regard has told you do this. There's a procedure. And so for us, we said, we are holding you, minister, responsible because you are the one in charge. You know, you superintend over the board superintends over top management. I don't see any other, you know, player therein. And so it's important, okay? And we also must learn that let's allow institutions to function.
Gentlemen, first hold it. Let's take a very quick break. But when we get back, we continue the conversation around the management of our national airline and what's happening inside of COSASE. Thank you so much for staying with us on the spot. We're looking into the Uganda Airlines and the COSASE probe into it. Joel, maybe if I could come back and start with you. That managerial crisis that you've described around hiring of talent, orders on who can and can't be paid, how much from the committee have you found has led to crisis or bad decisions being made because of that lack of a structure, or the presence of a structure that doesn't favor the running of the airline?
John Maxwell, a leadership scholar, once said, everything rises and falls on leadership. That is true. And there's another Ghanaian scholar, I think it's called Professor Steve Ade, who once said, leadership is cause, everything else is effect. You know, when things are going right, they don't go right by mistake. It's leadership done the right way. If things are going wrong, you will trace that eventually to leadership. Okay, so when you have an airline which has a lot of potential, which we all want to function, the people who think we want to, you know, this to destroy this airline. I flew on Uganda Airlines last year on a private visit. You know, it wasn't Parliament paying for me, whatever, it was a private visit. I said, let me get an experience of our airline. And I had a good experience because the staff, the pilots and so on, those are qualified people, but they're also struggling with challenges. Quietly, they kept telling me, please fight for us on this, you know. These cabin crew people, they're paid peanuts, and yet they do the heavy lifting and so on, the guys doing the ticketing and so on, all of those. They say, Honorable, please fight for us. And these issues are raised by the Auditor General as well. There are people earning crazy amounts, you know, and what are they doing in management? You don't know. And yet there are these foot soldiers, okay? So leadership. And we are saying, if you don't fix that issue, Uganda Airlines will not thrive. It will not be efficacious. You must fix it. How? Number one, get the right people in place. One, from the board. You know, there's a new board recently put in place. We are waiting to see and all of that. So you must make sure you have the right board in place, okay, with the right competencies and so on. And we don't want to over-glorify degrees and all of that, you know. Do you have some qualified people, you know, flight captains, retired or whatever, technical guys who know what to do? And then empower that board to do its work. Let that board go out and recruit staff. And they had started. They put out adverts, 40 people applied. None of them sat for interviews because all of that had to be terminated, and then somebody was imposed on them. How do you expect that relationship between the board and the CEO to function right? Okay? And how do we know this person is good? Because if the person is good, subject them to interviews. They will win if they are really good. Okay, so you want to fix that leadership issue, and then look at the broader management. Like I was telling you, there are questions about the other management team. Told you about their commercial director whose highest qualification is senior 6, and all the other things don't quite add up, regarding airline, because that experience is also important. So you find somebody will tell you have 10 years experience in the airline industry. What were they doing? They were a sales officer, they were an agent or whatever, and the stint they had at management was for a year or two, but because they did something within the airline industry, so I have 10 years, so I can occupy a managerial position. I don't know. I don't think so. So you want to fix that. Get the right people in place. And then be able to give them key performance indicators. But also close any gaps. Yeah? We have a procurement law in place for public entities to follow. Follow it, because when you don't follow it, you're going to run into brick walls. When you don't follow it, you're going to hire people that are not competent because you've not subjected them to competition. I was giving you an example of a firm which they hired, they just handpicked. No competitive bidding, procurement laws were not followed. And that firm has failed to do the job. Why? Because if you had gotten the others, to express interest, you'll be able to pick the best. But if you don't subject them to a competitive process, you don't have any guarantee that the person you have picked is going to do a good job. So those are all issues you have got to fix, okay? Follow procurement, and then accountability. Accountability is important, because if you cannot account for money, by the way, however good you are, however qualified you might be, and so on, if you're stealing from the airline, it will not be efficacious. All those leakages will not cause it to thrive, as should be the case. So all these are things that we are saying, let's fix them. Have the right people in place, keep your eyes on them, let them be accountable, let them follow the rightful procedures, whether it be in buying equipment, because also, if you don't follow procedures in buying equipment, we again were interrogating Uganda Airlines Corporation, and they didn't follow the rightful procurement regulations in buying certain equipment. And so there was a challenge, with that equipment getting to operate and so on and so forth. So you realize that when you do not do all of these things right, the end result, however good your pilots are. And I think that, according to what I've seen so far, some of the pilots we have are quite well trained and they know what to do. Okay, but again, they get frustrated by management because his job is to fly the plane. But if all the other attendant issues are not fixed, then even, because each of them is like a cog in the wheel, you're here moderating this show, but you're not doing this alone. There's somebody on sound, there's somebody, on the pictures, the reporters that did what they had to do, and so on. Each of you is like a cog in the wheel. So however good you might be, if the person who is working on our sound doesn't do a good job, the show will not come through as a good show. Okay, and so on and so forth. If the sound guys are good and so on, but the person here is not doing a good job, the show flops. Yeah, so you must be able to fix all of these issues. They are the foot soldiers that I was talking about, who are complaining, and the Auditor General raises that to saying, wait a minute, these salary disparities, there's a problem. Of course, the cabin crew member cannot earn the same as a manager, but cater for them too. If as managers you want to pay yourselves this much, even when you have not broken even yet, there's no profits yet, and so on and so forth, but they are the real guys who interact with clients. By the way, those ones matter the most, yeah? Because you, the manager, you might never actually get to interact with the clients, the guys who board the plane and so on. It is these guys who do the ticketing, the cabin crew guys and so on. So if they are not motivated, somebody will have a bad experience, and so they will use another flight next time.
Next time.
So you must be able to fix these issues.
Captain Babu, if I could bring you in, the airline has really undergone some intense storms ever since it started. There was a crisis around the purchase of the bombardiers that was criticized heavily. They pushed it through and managed to find their footing. There was criticism over the routes that they were choosing to take. They pushed that through and were able to get routes in Somalia, routes in Juba, routes everywhere. It looks like for every step the airline is taking, they have some intense criticism that comes their way, and they've got to fight it. Is this criticism part of the growth of the airline? Is it well-founded, or should we actually worry about this airline and feel like at some point someone who is qualified must step in and take the reins?
No. This is a bad culture we have developed as Ugandans. Whenever there is a purchase of something, whenever there is a procurement of some sort, there are powers there which struggle to fight. And most of them, I'm sorry to say, none of them brought out an issue. They were all ignorant. They were all fighting who should go to receive the aeroplane. They were not talking about how good the aeroplane was. They were just trying who should be there when they're buying those aeroplanes. But basically,
and we'll talk about how much was used on that event of receiving.
You know, the culture, the bad culture of Ugandans. And I'm sorry to say, I am not ashamed of it. There's a lot of corrupt people in this country who have got bad manners, and they use us politically to fight each other. And they fight people. They do all sorts of things. But basically, what should have happened? I think that's what we should do. Yeah. There was nothing wrong with the choice of aeroplanes. They were good. However, when they were buying Bombardier, somebody like me should have advised them that Bombardier is going to be bought by the Airbus. And when they buy it with the Airbus, they have come out with an aeroplane called Airbus 200, which is the new thing for the Bombardier we have just bought. Now, Air Tanzania has bought that Airbus 200. But that is beside the point. It requires people who follow aviation. That said and done, the aeroplanes they bought were very good. Nothing wrong about them. They are good airplanes. However, like I told you, I did not agree purchasing them, out-purchasing directly. I would have least purchased them so that I can change them. But for example, you've got Airbus 330 Neo. Immediately you buy it, immediately it comes out of the hangar, and they've got 5X, which is the Ugandan flag, right up on the back, on the tail. You lose 20%. After that, if you ask them today to sell those aeroplanes, they will lose about 30 to 40%. And as you keep them, they will depreciate even faster. So that argument is different. Don't worry about those people who are bickering, that we have gone over that. The point is we have the aeroplanes, we have very good pilots, we have very good engineers. Now for the salaries, I wanted to tell you this. If you went into the market today to get those experts I was telling you about, they will be between $20,000 to $25,000 a month, and that is money for consultants, right, who would come and start the airline. That one would be, that is not a problem. However, if you went to the United Nations, let's say Nairobi, where you have United Nations, and you looked at all the professionals, the salary again, I'm now going international, I'm going market, I'm not even going living wage, you find that they earn between $3,000 and $10,000. But I'm going to use dollars so that you have a picture. If you say the $10,000 is one of the highest thing in the United Nations, and you change it into our money, it is about 37 million shillings, correct?
Yes.
If you looked at all our parastatals here, that's approximately the salary they are giving our managing directors and chief executives. If you look at this NSSF, if you look at all those, they are around 35 to about 45 million. Are you with me? So Uganda, in our economy, we cannot afford a very big salary, but we can afford a reasonable salary. Now, that one was also wrong. Whilst I agree, if we had brought those experts, the one I was talking about, we could have given those people that money for 2 years to start up our airline. But our salaries should be a little bit lower because of our economy.
But you won't attract expertise if you have
no, you will.
I mean, KQ is competing for them,
I'm coming. No, that's not true. Today, the average pilot around the world is the highest paid in the aviation. Those would be between 10,000, the top captains, between $10,000 and $15,000. No more. And I saw the other day, they're earning 60 million a year. Now, we are not doing very badly there. The managers, giving them $5,000 really, frankly speaking, with the house and fuel and whatnot, that money is enough. And if you multiply $5,000, you're talking about 17 to 20 million shillings a month. Now, we can reason with our people. That is our economy. We are not very rich people. We are giving you that one. And if you took Makerere University, you took all the people around, how much money do the top people earn? Now, we can attract management. at a reasonable salary. I told you $10,000, which is for the chief executive officer, would be about 37 to 40 million shillings a month. Not 87 million. I would not give it to them. Now, the others would come down. Now, the people flying, they will earn more than the chief executive. It is all over the world. The captain of an Airbus would earn much more money than the chief executive. So it is in Emirates, so it is in British Airways, so everywhere it's the same. Now, that is a salary we can sit down and work out. Again, that was a mistake. Somebody should have... The money they were giving the other gentleman you quoted earlier on, he was a consultant. That was not a salary supposed to be for the chief executive. Now, say that done and said, the most important thing when you start an airline, you are talking about routes, you would get experts to look at your location. Uganda has got a very good location in terms of flying between the West Africa, East Africa, and the Far East, between the North and South, and all the way to Europe. We are in a very good location. Therefore, planning our routing is not very difficult. First of all, one of our best routes is Entebbe, Nairobi. The other best route we have is between here and Dubai. The other one we have is between here and London. And the other one we have is between here and South Africa. You don't need to go to school to do that one. We know. Now, once you've done that one, what now you need are experts in marketing. You was talking about commercial director? That is the guru of making money for the airline. You need the best marketing person you can get. And if you can't get them, you get an international firm to market those routes for you. You hire them and they do those routes for you. All right? Now, the routes you are talking about can be marketed. And why do you market, by the way? There's something called competition. Now, think about Uganda Airlines between here and London. Who goes to London? Kenya Airways goes to London. Ethiopian Airlines goes to London. Rwanda Airways goes to London. Emirates goes to London. And all those. Now, your marketing, what do they look at? Oh, we can go direct to London. We don't have to go via any of those countries. Our people will go direct between London and here, and therefore that's the first market we have. Then you look at between here and Dubai. We will not be going, our people will come directly. They don't go via Addis Ababa. They don't have to go via Nairobi. So we have got that market. We're only competing with Emirates. So you have marketing people. Look now, what is it that we can do to attract more people? He brought a very good point, and I'm surprised he's becoming a very good aviator this man. he talked about the cabin crew. Yeah. People look at them as if those are marketing people. They are marketing your airline. The better, the way they serve the passengers, they attract them. Therefore, marketing people must make sure that the cabin crew is very well paid, is very looked after, and they will attract more passengers for you. The people who receive your passengers at the airport, the one who check them in, they are as good as the one who own the aircraft. So marketing, or commercial manager, as they called him here, is probably the most important in making money for the airline. The rest of the airline, they put the money out. They are taking the money. The marketing man makes it, and these other people use it. So marketing, you must have somebody who is probably a guru of some sort.
Joel, I want you to speak to us around how payment of allowances. I mean, I lost my head when I was listening to your committee around payment of allowances. People were fishing out allowances day in, day out, getting allowances on travel, allowances that are not backed by that travel. Someone says, I've gone to do work for the airline in London. There's no ticket to match. There's nothing but money has been drawn out. How did the airline get to that point where these outflows were happening, which caused them massive losses?
So two things. Number one, for any serious entity, you must have a staff structure. Uganda Airlines does not have that. Now, those are not my words. That's the Auditor General's report. You know, some of these things, there are people who continuously say that Joel Ssenyonyi, he says all these things about the air. There's nothing I say that I've gotten from my head. It is either in the Auditor General's report or as we inquire, when you're doing a bit of probing, and we learn these things in law school. There are questions you ask and then you get answers which you probably, this person would not have said, but the way you probe. So the other things have been said by these very people, okay? And so they don't have a staff structure, a robust staff structure. And in addition to that, they don't have a salary structure. So I asked them, how are you guys operating when you don't have a staff structure, you don't have a salary structure? So that means people earn whatever they are earning as set by somebody else, you know. It must be in place. When it's not in place, you're going to have all these issues, you know. And I asked the board to do this in 1 month, you know. I hope that the board can be given time and chance to operate, you know. When I look at the board, I know a few people, and they are fairly competent people. When you look at wherever else they have been, you know, they have chance to do the right thing or to fail, because it's not enough for your CV and where you have been and all of those things to look good. You know, you can either end up doing the right thing, or you can refuse to do the right thing, or you can be frustrated. I hope that they will not be frustrated. The board that's in place now, it's a new board. They've not had chance yet to work. I hope that they can be given chance to operate, chance to hire people, as opposed to, here's the directive, hire so and so. And they also seemed very disarmed. That's why they were saying, now, Chair, what were we supposed to do? I hope that they can be given chance to either succeed or to fail, you know. They, from what I could see from some of the board people, they look like they're qualified people. I hope that they can put in place some of these things. Have in place a staff structure. You know that we need so and so, right from the CEO. You need these managerial positions filled. You need this number of captains, you know, because you have 6 aircraft. So you plan based on that, yeah. This number of cabin crew, etc., etc. All of the people that you need, you know, and then of course the different offices in different countries. There's a station, of course, in Juba, in Nairobi, Dubai, and so on. So again, you plan for that staffing as well. That what's the traffic like in Juba? And so based on the traffic, you plan for that office. The traffic in Dubai is a lot more. You plan again for that as well. You know, Nairobi, and so on and so forth. That can only happen when you have a robust staff structure in place. And then against that staff structure, you juxtapose a salary structure after knowing who do we need. And then you can be able to come up with a salary structure which is not in place. That's why people are earning crazy amounts. You find there's a manager, again, that's in the Auditor General's report. Those are not Joel Ssenyonyi's words, you know. Manager, director maintenance earning 80 million. You know, then there's another director earning 60, another director earning 15. So all of these are directors, same rank. Why are you paying this one 80 and paying this one 15? It doesn't make sense, you know. Or have these things organized, yeah. Same thing with many of the others. So you find people occupying, you know, the same position, same rank, and so on. The salaries, there's a mismatch there. Now that's what happens when you don't have a salary structure in place against a staff structure. So the only way these things can be fixed, be orderly, be organized, you know. And you see, you being organized is spoken of in smaller things. We, on Thursday last, met the management team, and we asked them to return on Tuesday. Verbally, we told them. But the way I operate, I follow up with a letter. Even after we have interacted today and say we are meeting again on Tuesday, immediately the letter follows you, so that it's on record. We wait for them on Tuesday. Meeting's supposed to start at 10. At 10:30, somebody comes running with a letter. Honorable Chair, we are requesting to reschedule because of these pre-planned activities. I was livid. I said, but you guys, is this how you're running our airline? You're not organized at all. Because I'm a human being too. I know that issues can come up, taking care of this and that. If you ask for an extension, I would be inhuman not to allow it. But you have come when we are waiting for you. You had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
To get back.
And this wasn't an emergency. It's not that one of the aircraft has caught fire, so you're dealing with that. No, this was a pre-planned event. Months ago, they had guests that they are taken care of and this Afra thing and so on and so forth. I said, but this is not an emergency. Why are you not organized to even let us know that, you know what, we'll not be able to come in advance? So these are little things that goes to show you about the disorder there is. You know, if you know, when you meet somebody for the first time, you can tell this person here is organized or not. The way they are dressed, the way they, you know, yes. There are people, you make an appointment with them for 10 a.m. They come at midday, and they don't even imagine there's a problem. How you see this traffic?
Yes, let's start the surgery, Captain.
The financial management. Remember I told you, I talked about marketing. I was waiting to talk to you about financial management. That one requires you have to be very precise. the competition in airline business is so much that the profits you make and the internal rates of return are way, way, way below 20%. You're talking about 10 or less sometimes. So you need to have very good financial gurus who can tell you how to do this. Second, the salaries. We have groups that can sit down and work out salaries that are both international, that are market, and that are living wages. These are experts. They will sit down and give you these salaries. You don't need to do that. Now, my brother here was talking about the man of maintenance. Earlier on, I told you there are some experts, for example, like the pilots, the chief pilot, and the maintenance man. Those might be way even above the chief, but somebody needs to explain it to them. And I think he's right. Why should the director of airport, they have got what they call facilitation, should earn less money than the director of maintenance? Somebody should be able to explain. And we have experts who can actually explain these things so that everybody is very clear. And like I told you earlier on, this again would have been brought by that task expert group I was telling you about. They would have done all this, put it on paper. And by the way, I want to take this opportunity. There's a lot of people in this country. They go to our head of state, the president, and they feed him with all sorts of things. And they don't give him the truth. Because I don't think the man, if he got the true facts, he would go for the wrong ones. But there are people who go there and feed him with all sorts of things. And I think time has come.
Captain Babu, hold on to your point. Let's take a very short break. When we get back, we start with your reactions to our discussion today, and we wrap up our conversation for tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us on the spot. Now we want to engage you who've been watching from your homes to tell us what you've been seeing and the kinds of comments that you want to have discussed here. I'll start with this one. I am Nalubega Umaya from Nakauka. Thank you, Honorable Ssenyonyi, for the good work done. I think Jennifer should have resigned yesterday. Thank you. I think that one is directed to Joel, asking when she'll resign. I'm Kevin Galusha from Sironko. I do enjoy NTV programs. Thank you. Analyze Uganda's national turbulence and hard times ahead. Thank you for keeping NTV programs alive. To Captain Francis Babu, Honorable Joel Ssenyonyi, and the moderator, thank you so much for this regards. Hello Raymond, thanks for the show. This is Opit Bernard Alfred from Mukono. I'm grateful to Honorable Ssenyonyi and Captain Francis Babu. The COSASE of Honorable Ssenyonyi has given me reason to follow Parliament proceedings. Thumbs up. Please continue. Do not be intimidated by the belly aching of the one-tweets that are so commonplace in our society. This definitely is a Wole Soyinka friend. I really don't know where Uganda is going for sure, because things are becoming so hard. Ssenyonyi, you are one of the people we expect to help us. Nesimanyi cause amanyi tegachari n'abantu. I think this one is directed again to Ssenyonyi. You will tell us about the energy that you have and where that energy is going. Thanks for the show. We shall start doing things rightly. Almost every state enterprise are in the mud of confusion, especially those with lucrative deals. Hiring relatives, friends who are not competent to run a highly technical entity will cost us dearly. One day we shall reach there. This is Okelo Patrick Bonyo from Busega and Rubaga in Kampala. This one is appreciating us for the work done. I appreciate the work done. God bless you and never give up. This is Asimwe Patrick from Bunyangabu. If we could get the next one rather quickly. Thanks very much for hosting my brother, Honorable Ssenyonyi Joel. Now, what next are you going to do in order to drop those skyrocketed salaries of Uganda Airlines worker Tahoreho Moses from Kabale Municipality? I think I'll start with Joel. This is a direct question to you to respond to. What next are you going to do in order to bring down the salary disparities that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, we are pushing, like I mentioned, the issue of staff structure is important, and then salary structure. Once you have the staff structure, then salary structure, it will remedy these things, you know. The board asked for until end of year. I told them, look, we cannot wait for until end of year. You know, if you focus on this issue, you can do it within 1 month. because you want the airline to have credibility, you want the staff to be all right, because when the staff members are grumbling quietly, they'll not tell management, but for us as their representatives, they tell us. So once they grumble, they might sabotage internally, or even just because they're not motivated and so on. So that's something we are pushing for. Very important. Let the salary structure, for starters, the staff structure be in place, and then the salary structure. It's important.
All right, thank you. Let's continue here. Don Mutima says, as Ugandans, we are with you. Honorable Joel Ssenyonyi, we're tired of corruption. That I think is directed to you. Thanks for the program. Ssenyonyi is doing recommendable work to expose the wrong in the airline, but he's not fighting it. I like the reason of Francis Babu. I'm wondering why Museveni can't hire true people like Babu to guide us in such matters. Captain Francis, do you want to respond to this? Why you're not being hired by the president to guide our airline?
No, I can't. That one is very difficult. But I still do advise. Even now I'm advising. I don't need to be hired. I love this country, and therefore they can ask me. I don't even need to be hired. I can give my advice anytime. One point I wanted to ask Ssenyonyi to allow the board a little bit more time. They should get competent people to make the salary structures. It should not just be made quickly. There should be competent people who sit down and review the salary structure using all sorts of parameters so that people don't complain afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's allowable. We're only saying try and operate as quickly as you can. So yes, they might not hit it exactly within a month's time, but what we're saying is please don't wait for an entire year, because as you wait for that, a lot of mess is going on which you want to fix as quickly as you can. So yeah, there can be a balance of sorts.
All right, let's get back here. Thanks for the services you're rendering to the country. Magai Ediga, Honorable Joel, thanks for the work, but not focus only on one issue for the CEO. There are so many other issues that are still affecting Ugandans. As the head of COSASE, please, how about unqualified people in different sectors like hospitals, even some MPs without certified documents but are leading the overly qualified people in constituencies and in the parliament, very idle, just fighting for breakfast and lunch in parliament, forgetting that we're paying for them, I think, and is not very happy with parliament. Paul here, thanks moderator for hosting the show. Apart from talking about credentials, which Ssenyonyi sees as very vital, I think the committee is also losing sight. Joel just mentioned that there's a financial manager whose qualification is Essex, but he has experience with the industry. What role
I didn't say she has experience.
Yes. What role did Captain Babu do in regards to procurement and outsourcing of the Bombardier? Do you want to respond to that quickly, Captain?
No. What I did, I advised them. The aeroplane is very good, by the way. Let's not get this wrong. It's a very good aeroplane, and it is an aeroplane that is very good is very fuel efficient. It's very good for short range. Short and medium range. Not the medium is a little bit too far, but short range is very good between here and Nairobi, Dar es Salaam. It's a very comfortable little aeroplane. I've flown in it, and our pilots are really good at it. So the only thing I would have advised at the time was that they should have waited for this new one, which is an Airbus 200, which came out, which is extremely good.
Joel, do you want to respond to the fact that someone says that you're losing sight? Do you think that the committee is losing sight in its probe of COSASE, or of Uganda Airlines rather?
So firstly, of course, the issue of documents has been dwelt on a great deal by the media and the country. And you don't blame people because they're thinking, wait a minute. When we are applying for jobs, they say you don't have qualifications and so on. How are things happening here? But I want to re-emphasize the question of academic qualifications versus experience. Both are important, okay? Where we start from is, for starters, do you have the academic qualifications that are within the manual, that are set as law, okay? Like I said, for you to be an MP, you need senior 6. It's not enough for you to speak nice English or be a good debater. If you don't have the qualification, somebody will take you to court and they'll throw you out, because that's important, yeah? But of course, aside from the qualification, the experience, and we are interrogating the experiences of these people. Like I was saying, you know, somebody will tell you, I've been there for 10 years, top management and so on, but then they were a sales officer in some airline for some maybe 5 years or whatever. And so this also doesn't quite add up. But I emphasize both are important, because even then, in the manual, they don't only mention academics. They begin with academics, then they go to qualifications. Because you can have a PhD, but have no experience. You know, again, you're not good enough. After all, the manual is setting in place academics, experience, etc., etc. So both are important.
All right, thank you so much. Let's just take, I think, 3 more. My name is Gonzaga Jackson from Naweru. We love our country, we love our airline, so the high powers in this country are the ones responsible for its downfall. Uganda Airline management should follow Captain Babu's advice. Let's fix the mistakes, and it's early enough to fix the mistakes. This is Gonzaga Jackson from Naweru. Raymond, thank you so much for hosting those 2 men. Captain Babu, please have the courage to call on the ED of Uganda to let institutions apply their authority. This timidness in telling HE is also betraying itself. On the issue of the image of the airline, the risk is not with qualifications of key staff, rather a fear that a CEO who overpays herself through another company has the ability not to oversee proper servicing of aircraft, and this becomes a health risk. Remember, the president just questioned the Civil Aviation Authority on airport management. That whole place is a mess. I think that's Daniel's question. I'll ask Joel and Captain Babu to respond. I'm Norman in South Africa. I would like to ask Captain Babu if it's right to pay 87 million to a CEO whose company is making losses. Secondly, do you think Uganda Airlines will collapse eventually? Thirdly, what can Uganda copy and learn from Ethiopian Airlines? And would it be bad if we hired someone from Ethiopian Airlines to run ours? So let's start with Captain Babu, I think, responding to these ones, then we go to Joel.
Well, the first one really is there's only one word. We need to be honest in this country. The word honest would answer a lot of things. If we had honest people, things would be done correctly. If you don't have honest people, things will not be done correctly. Now, I told you earlier on that is what we call a market rate for leaders in aviation industry. Most of the chief executive officer of those big airlines, you're talking about Emirates, which has got over 200 airplanes. You're talking about those big, those ones can earn that money because that's about $25,000. Now, for a small airline like ours, I told you earlier on that really we could pay them what we are paying other chief executive officers of our institutions here. Most of them are earning between 30 to about 45 million shillings, which is about $10,000. Now, even that one is still very high, but that is something we can accommodate if we got some experts to sit down and look at our country, our economy, and what sort of salaries we should pay our people. It can be done, and like I said, we need to have a damage control, and we need to forgive each other. Let's start from a clean slate. I would like to thank this committee, and let's not vilify our committee. Let's find where we've gone wrong, correct it. Already the airline is not bad. We have very good staff, and the people who are lower, who are complaining bitterly, we should pay them well, as quickly as we can.
Joel, if we come to you, there are questions around what the committee should do.
Raymond, Uganda Airlines has got incredible potential, but that's if we do the right thing. You know, I'm afraid if we don't do the right thing, it will keep plunging, and that is a story of many things in this country. You have a good program, but then it gets misrun, you know, by the wrong people, who are not qualified, and even when they are, they're just trying to see how they can make things here, leakages and so on. So it has incredible potential, I think. Can we tap into this potential? That can only happen once we do the right thing. But if we don't do the right thing, okay, people are out there misappropriating the money, hiring their own companies, you know, the wrong people are put in place. You're not allowing the board to do its job of hiring qualified people, and then tomorrow you expect things to work out the right way. It's just not possible. No miracles will happen. But if we do the right thing, you just might be shocked. Somebody asks, you know, will it eventually collapse? Uganda Airlines has collapsed before. We have been here, okay? And now it's being revived. Now, if you make the same mistakes, you don't need a prophet to tell you that it will collapse again. But if you try and do things better, and we learn from our past, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from other airlines. Good enough, there's so many experiences to learn from. Ethiopian Airlines, KQ, Emirates, etc., etc. There are people like Captain Francis Babu here who, you know, you see the challenge, unfortunately. I don't think that those in position to do the right thing don't know what to do or have a shortage of advice, you know. No, maybe they listen to the wrong people, or they just don't want to take the right advice. I don't know. But I think that there's plenty of availability of whether it be technical advice or whatever the case might be for the right thing to be done. Let's do the right thing.
Yeah. Captain Babu, your concluding remarks.
My concluding, we need a mindset change in how corporations are managed, especially government corporations. Now, we need to be honest to our country. We need to know where we are. Baganda have a very nice saying, if you allow me to say it in Uganda, omumpi wakoma wakwata, meaning you can't go beyond where you can reach. Now, our country in the world economy, we're one of those poor countries. Therefore, we need to also, be able to live within our levels. And we can. When we worked for East African Airways, when I worked for Nigeria Airways, we were not earning as much as British Airways or American Airlines. The salaries were lower, but we worked. Air India does not pay as much as Singapore Airlines, does not pay as much as British Airways. But we live within a reasonable salary, which is virtually more or less international. I mean, you get a person in Uganda earning between $3,000 to $5,000, is doing very well. We can, as Ugandan, accept to live within our levels. And I think, and I'm begging, virtually begging Ugandans, for goodness sake, let our airline work. Let our airline go forward.
All right, Captain Babu, Joel Ssenyonyi.
Maybe if you'll allow me just 1 minute.
All right.
I've been seeing some people and some leaders, unfortunately, trying to tribalize this issue. Saying now, Joel Ssenyonyi and COSASE, you are attacking Toro. I thought, no. This man is a Mtoro. I'm sure those are not your views. Let's not tribalize this issue. And if somebody is doing the wrong thing, regardless of where they come from, even if they come from your own backyard, wrong is wrong. Let's move away from the saying of, he is a thief, but he is our thief. No, what is wrong is wrong, okay? Let's not try and confuse people, yeah? But I've also realized, Raymond, when you fight corruption, it fights back. Okay, so little wonder there's all manner of things being said, there's threats all over the place and so on. But we are firm. We shall do what is right. Somebody was asking, so what happens afterwards? Let's do our job. We are exposing this rot, we are diagnosing the problem. Okay, so those who are meant to action, if they are sincere that they want this airline to work, take action.
All right, Honorable Joel, Captain Francis Babu, thank you so much for making time for our discussion today.
Thank you.
Our viewers, thank you so much for watching us. I know that you missed Patrick Kamara. He will be back here next week on Thursday, but thank you so much for tuning in for On The Spot. God bless you and God bless Uganda.